Alright, and now we are back. Yes, we are back. Okay, so now I'm going to just go down the list. So let's see, we've already watched those three, so I'm going to delete those, as soon as I exit the replay, actually. Let's do it again! Come on, yeah. Alright, so let's have a look here. This one is Neo Planet S Fun with DTs, and that actually is making me quite excited for what we're going to see here. So I've already spoiled it, guys, sorry. But the replay was named like that, so doesn't matter. So in the top right hand corner we have our random player who's going to be Otakon. Probably an otaku right there. Nothing wrong with being an otaku, to be honest, but if you are really far too into it to have like arguments about whatever. And in the bottom left hand corner we have our blue Protoss player. He is playing random. He's going to be Shortcut. Alright. So we'll see what our Protoss player decides to do this time. Red player is actually going to drop down the pylon now, and this probe. He's gonna drop down. He's gonna drop down a proxy pylon somewhere. Unfortunately, oh, there we go. There goes the proxy pylon right there. So I think our red Zerg player needs. Zerg player. Wow, what's wrong with me? Our red Protoss player really needs to bring out those probes. I'm thinking of Zerg now. This probe should be able to survive to throw down, I guess, a gateway. Now, our Protoss player. Our Protoss player is dropping down a pylon in his own base, which means this is not going to be some sort of proxy all-in, as it's not going to work. But he is going to try and kill off one of the probes. We'll see if he manages to get the kill. No, he probably doesn't. He probably won't get the kill. So these. Oh wait, he does. Does he get the kill? Eddie? Nope, he doesn't get the kill. So that's a bit of a shame there. But this probe, in fact, actually getting the kill himself. So that's actually quite unfortunate for our blue Protoss player. But it doesn't matter because he is going to probe up now. This is literally my first PvP of the season. Fair enough. I want to remind you guys that this was played on the Southeast Asian server, and to be honest, we don't really do that much on the Southeast Asian server. It's quite funny how Australians actually generally play on the North Asian server. No, the North American server. That's what I was going to say. Keep it together, Ran. Come on. So anyway, we do see the scouting probe is going to come down. This is actually the probe that actually got hit about 5, 6, 7 times. Poor thing. But now it's going to scout out what appears to be just a gateway. We don't rush, shall we? Oh, it looks like our red Protoss player wants to make a pact of what is essentially called honor. It's like an honor pact. Usually see that. Well, we only saw that in like the beta of Heart of the Swarm, where the players wanted to get used to those new units. There's a lot of drones to pull out to kill one drone. Wow, that's a lot of probes to pull off to kill one other probe. I am all over the place today, or tonight. It is nighttime right now. It's 5:46 p.m. in the afternoon here in Sydney, Australia, so if I seem a little bit off, well, that's pretty usual for me. Woo! It looks like our blue Protoss player is going to drop down his Nexus. He is, of course, going to try and expand first. We'll see if our red Protoss player decides to do the same. He has scouted the Nexus, so he is going to drop down one of his own. So this is not going to be like a 1 base versus 2 base, where the 1 base player apparently somehow manages to win, as it was in Wings of Liberty. Like, you used to only have to play 1 base aggression in PvP, and it was just like, what? It never ended up being like Carrier Colossus versus some stupid Void Race stuff, or I don't know. I'm just making it up now. But anyway, we do have Warp Gate being researched already by our red Protoss. It's actually quite late, seeing that our blue Protoss player dropped down his Cybernetics core only like 5 seconds ago. So this is probably going to be a bit of a problem for our red Protoss player eventually. Like, in PvP, you want to get your Warp Gates out as quickly as possible because they are so good. Granted, Warp Gate units are not that Granted, gateway units are not necessarily the best, but still having the ability to just warp in units anywhere instantly is like the best thing you could have. Which is why Protoss players who don't go warp gate are like screwing themselves like hard. Like really hard. But anyway, we do see the Twilight Council is coming down. Now remember, this is, spoiler alert, fun with DT, so we should be seeing a Dark Shrine coming down for our blue Protoss player very soon. He does have the mothership out. The mothership core, actually. Now, our red player is actually dropping down the Forge. This is actually going to be pretty interesting. If he decides to drop down a cannon, he may be just doing that for defense. The Dark Shrine is going to come down now for our Protoss player now. For our blue player, actually. And one thing that's good against DTs are observers. So if our red player decides to put down a robotics facility, this is actually going to... then the attack is actually going to work really, really badly. What is this? Wait, he's dropping out a Forge here. He's dropped out a Forge there. Is he trying to wall off like that? I've never seen anyone actually try and wall off like that. We'll see if he actually decides to do that, because that would be the most funniest thing ever. That would just simply... it would actually be even more hilarious if our blue Protoss player actually decides to just come in like that. Now we do see a Twilight Council of his own! Oh, could we be seeing some DT v DT play here? Both players are not actually dropping down... oh, he actually is dropping down the... oh, what was that? Okay, our blue Protoss player is actually dropping down the Robo Facility, where... Robo Facility, yes, Robo Facility. Meanwhile, our red Protoss player should drop down a cannon! He should drop down a cannon, otherwise this kind of defense is completely worthless against DTs! He should also try and scout with like an observer, maybe? We'll see. Now, our blue Protoss player is actually quite supply blocked. He is trying to make the... okay, no, now he's... okay, fine, the pylon has actually finished, but just then he actually tried to chrono boost out a probe when he was supply blocked, which is Bronze League hero stuff. So that's quite fun of him to do so. But anyway, both players are actually just going to try and macro up. I think they're both actually, yeah, just probing up, which is not really the right word to use, but they are macroing up anyway. We do have a Warp Prism already coming out for our blue Protoss player. He's probably going to try and do a DT drop, if not more or less just a warp in. Now, oh, it is actually going to be a DT drop. There are 4 DTs right there. Now, blue player is not going to actually try and, he's actually going to try and save up his minerals and gas to do a, like, 8 DT all in. Unfortunately, our red player has no idea about this. He's not even going to drop down any cannons, which is... well, that's a reasonable thing to do, not drop down cannons in your own base. But unfortunately, that's going to be the death of him, because these DTs are actually going to come in. Now, he is making some more zealots, but unfortunately, they are completely useless. If our red player decides to do a counter-attack, I think he might be able to break the blue Protoss player until our blue Protoss player morphs in a bunch of DTs. But here they come! There's 4 DTs right there. We're going to see what he decides to warp in. He should be warping in some more DTs. That's actually, wow, that's actually quite a lot of DTs. He can also warp in another round of 4 DTs, but here they come. He's actually going to go for the probes now. This is actually a really, really good idea, and that's a lot of probes being killed. If we bring up the Workers Lost tab, that's 23, 24. And now he's actually going to try and get the Nexus. Now, we should be seeing a Observer. Actually, it's already come out for our red Protoss player, but I don't know if he has enough to kill these DTs. He's actually on the move command, and okay, we'll see whether this works. Is he actually going to kill everything? He's actually going to kill everything because DTs are so overpowered. No, he's actually going to lose everything. No. He should not have tried to micro that. He should have just engaged. If he engaged that army with those DTs, he would have actually destroyed everything. But he is going to warp in another wave of those DTs. Where is that observer? I don't think the observer's right there. Now he can actually engage. He should just actually engage this army here, and those zealots are actually going to... well, those zealots actually did a lot of damage to those DTs. He's going to unpower at least the gateway. Oh wow, I see what he did there. He actually unpowered all of those warp gates, which means our red player actually has nothing to defend against this. Now our sorry, our blue player is actually going for the Nexus, which I don't think is such a good thing. He should actually just try and kill off these Zealots! He's not going to. Now, our red player should be thinking must be thinking that there's a warp prism somewhere, and he's got to find it, and he's going to try and shoot it down with the Stalker, which is actually going to be enough to take out this warp prism eventually. Now, was an email, guys. Now, an Immortal is coming out for our blue Protoss player, which is actually going to be pretty good as long as he can defend against it. Defend the Immortal, but these Stalkers are actually going to come in from the front now. Even the Mothership getting in on some of the action here. This Stalker has actually really overextended itself, and I think our blue player has basically got this in the bag. Our red player is going to GG out. And even a random DT does actually come in. He's not going to leave just yet, but I think he can't win. He can't win. He can't win! And that's it. GG for our red Protoss player. So as we saw there, our red Protoss player made the mistake of not putting out a cannon. He did actually have +1/+1, evidently, from those forges, which meant that he had a bit of an advantage against those DTs. He could actually, like, his units could actually survive a little bit longer, and they could probably hit a little harder, which is probably why those Zealots actually did so much damage to that DT. But unfortunately, DTs are really, really good. And even though he got the Observer out, that was not enough. That one engagement where the DTs were actually moving around, I think that was a bit of a mistake by our red Protoss player. But whatever. Alright, so we're going to move into another game now. It's only 5:54, which means I'm going to go for another half hour, I reckon. Okay, let's do this. This one's going to be in Qantas Maya, so let's have a look into the game itself. So in the top right hand corner of Qantas Maya, the Vagina map, it is going to be our red Zerg player who's shortcut. And in the top left hand corner, it is going to be our blue Protoss player, the random blue Protoss player from the ladder. It is one ass Why God Galaxy. Wow, I completely screwed that up. This is going to be a ZVP on Qantas Maya. We'll see what our players decide to do here. This is of course trolling by our Zerg player, so we'll see what actually happens in this game. Unlike last game, unlike the DT games, I'm actually not going to try and spoil this one because I actually know what's going to happen, but I'm not going to tell you. I've learned from my mistakes. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So anyway, we do see the spawning pool coming down for our Zerg player now. Meanwhile, Gateway coming down for our Protoss player. I think our Zerg player is going to play reasonably safe this time against Protoss. You want to get the spawning pool out first to defend against Protoss before you get completely ruffle stomped by Zealots. Because Zealots are really, really good. Anyway, we do have the probe scouting out the Zerg player's bases, or lack of. And we do have a gas beam coming down for now. We have a gas coming down now for our Protoss player here, as he is waiting for that gateway to finish. This is actually a really standard opener. This is the opener that I actually end up using in my Protoss matches as well. This is pretty normal timing. He is going to drop down the cybernetics core now, which is pretty standard. Should be seeing a hatchery coming down for our Zerg player very soon. Because he is going up against Protoss, he needs to get the extra hatchery up as soon as he can. Instead, he is actually going to go for 6 Zerglings. I guess that's pretty normal. They should be able to take out this Zealot unless the Zealot manages to find a sweet spot where he can like take him out one by one by one. But the Zerglings are actually going to try and do a little bit of harass. Can they actually... No, he's just going to run away from the Zealot. Zealot's too scary, but he's going to try and get the Cybernetics core. But two Zealots are coming in now. This is not a very good engagement for our Zerg player. Mothership core is actually coming out for our Protoss player right now, which means he could actually try and do a bit of an aggressive counterattack with just Zealots. We'll see what he decides to do from that. Meanwhile, our Zerg player is already got enough minerals. He should try and drop down the hatchery. I think this is going to be the hatchery. Yes, it is. Now, some more Zerglings are coming out for our Zerg player. Fair enough. Meanwhile, Wolfgate research is being researched. Wow. Our Zerg player is actually just going to stick to Zerglings, which is not a very good idea against mass Zealots. But he actually manages to run through. Some of those Zerglings will die, but these Zerglings are actually quite low on health, which means even the probes could actually fight against those Zerglings. But he is actually going to lose a lot of those Zerglings. He did actually get a sweet spot, but unfortunately the mothership's just going to shut that down, so he can't actually unpower this gateway just yet, which is a bit of a shame. But he is sort of delaying this this timing attack. But anyway, we do see 3 gateways actually being put down by our Protoss player. Now, I shouldn't be really that surprised because the name of this file was in fact Why You Shouldn't Forgate Against Zerg Players. Now, Zergling Speed has already been researched, and he's actually going to take the long way around. Meanwhile, our Protoss player is actually going to cross the rickety frickin' bridge. So our Zerg player, I think he knows about this. Yes, he does know about this imminent attack, but he is going to try and counterattack it. Our Protoss player has actually not walled off, which means these Zerglings should actually do a ton of damage against this the Protoss player right there, because actually he's going to go for the Nexus! I don't know what he has to do. I don't know what's with his his infatuation with killing Nexi, if that's the right word, but our Protoss player actually has enough minerals to make another Nexus. Now, it looks like if we bring up the units killed tab, that's actually very heavily in our Zerg player, in our Protoss player right there, which means that attack, it did actually get rid of the Nexus, but at what cost? Actually a pretty good cost, because now our Protoss player is completely screwed for a while. He cannot go for a counterattack. That would be suicide at this point in time, but it looks like he is actually going to move out with just 3 Zealots, and I don't think... He has 3 Zealots and a Sentry. Now, I'm not sure if the Sentry could actually do anything against those Zealots. Meanwhile, our Zerg player is actually getting a Baneling Nest, so that's actually pretty exciting. That's actually really, really good response against those Zealots. And the great thing about getting a Baneling Nest against Zealots as opposed to against Marines, for example, is that you don't even have to get speed. You don't even have to get Baneling speed against Zealots, because Zealots will have to try and engage in melee range, and that's exactly how close you're supposed to get your Banelings in order for them to hit. But anyway, this little hit spot right there is actually going to target the natural, and we have a fail sort of force field by our Protoss player. Now our Zerg player is not going to reveal those Banelings until the very last second, but not even a GG by our Protoss player. He just left, and with good reason too. He was completely screwed. He lost his Nexus. That was been unfortunate for him. He did lose that Nexus, and he shouldn't have attacked at that particular point in time. Also, another thing, he really messed up with that force field. If he actually got that force field to hit the ramp precisely, then our Zerg player would have actually lost his natural, and then both players would have been sort of on par with each other, and this could actually have turned into a rather long game. So it is 6 o'clock right now, so we're going to go for even longer. Maybe I might be able to get through all these games depending on how long they are. So we're going to go into Derelict Watcher now. It's going to be a ZV random actually. So in the bottom left hand corner it is going to be our red Zerg player. Shortcut. And in the top right hand corner is going to be our blue Protoss player, who's going to be Leo. Of the clan Diablo, actually. That's That's a pretty cool clan name. Yeah, it's Diablo's Leo. That's wow. I think that guy's really into his what is it? Some hang on. Okay, let's break this down. Diablo is Spanish from memory for devil, and Leo of course is the star sign, which is for the lion. I could have messed it up. I don't remember. But anyway, moving away from that now because that's not what we're talking about. Woo! So anyway, the drone is actually going to scout out the Protoss player's base first. Wait. This was the first Overlord, and our Zerg player decided not to move the Overlord out first. That's okay, I guess. But anyway, we are going to see a Forge Fast expand from our Protoss player, so we should be seeing some pretty good games. This should be a long game, hopefully, as long as our Protoss player doesn't mess up with, say, a force field that does not trap all the Zerglings. In fact, lets the Zerglings through and thus ruffle stomp the base. Ruh-roh. But our Zerg player is actually... he's got enough minerals. He should actually think about going for his hatchery now, because a Forge 5 expand... oh, he's actually going to go for a hatchery in the opponent's natural! This is something that only... that Cats came up with not long ago, and we'll see actually if this works in this Silver League versus Gold League game. Meanwhile, our Protoss player is actually going to respond with going for an early third, completely skipping the natural. Fair enough, he was going to drop down the natural here, but if he decides to drop down a cannon, that will actually shut down this hatchery for good. That will shut down this hatchery for good, but looks like he's not going to. He's actually going to drop down another pylon, so our Zerg player actually probably knows that there is some shenanigans happening right here, as that Overlord has in fact scouted out that pylon. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, 2 Zerglings have been made, which means they're going to try and maybe see what's going on here, but a photon cannon is going to shut down any Zergling scouting by our Zerg player, I guess. Meanwhile, the hatchery is about to actually finish. Is he going to cancel it? No, he is not, because this is how you troll, man. Now, a photon cannon has already been... wow. A photon cannon has already been placed by our Protoss player, which means this hatchery is going to die very soon. Meanwhile, cannon already placed down here means that scouting out that third base is not going to happen. This cannon is actually already in range of the hatchery, which means he's actually going to try and do some proxy Zergling sort of attack. Now, this Zergling's not going to do anything versus all these probes, unless he manages to pull them off mining for a bit. That will be a bit of an economic harass. We do have 2 Zerglings just sitting there. I think our Zerg player needs to think about dropping down a proper base, and maybe this game will turn into a bit more of a macro game if both players decide to do such a thing. We have a right number of probes in that gas. It's only coming down one at a time. That's so hilarious. So anyway, it looks like if our Zerg player wants to do a proper attack, he's going to need to try and make well, he's actually got 4 Zerglings coming out together. So 3 of them will make it through. Oh no, all 4 of them actually managed to make it through somehow, by some sort of miracle in timing. So we do have 4 Zerglings loose in the base, and the probes are actually going to try and kill it off. They're going to manage to get rid of one, they're going to get rid of the second one, and they're going to get rid of the third one, and they're going to get rid of the last one too. Now this Zergling is going to die as well, but our Protoss player actually sitting on 700 minerals, which means this sort of economic harass is actually not doing too much damage. Meanwhile, this cannon is actually going to fall, and these Zerglings are actually going to kill off everything, and Diablo just basically rage quits out of that game. I don't think this was actually a really good idea to try and just leave, because Diablo was still sitting on 2 base, as opposed to Leo, who was only sitting on 1... sorry, as opposed to Shortcut, who's only sitting on 1 base, which means that if our Protoss player manages to hold and build a few more units, then basically our Zerg player will not be able to keep up economically wise, lava wise, units wise in fact as well, because Protoss units are so good at killing Zerg units. It is insane. Especially just Zealots versus Zerglies is just completely one-sided, which is why I think our Protoss player should have kept himself in the game and probably dropped down another Nexus, like on the other side of the map. That would really, I don't know, screw around with our Zerg player's mind. I actually tried to do that once against a Protoss player. Unfortunately, it didn't work because I made the mistake of playing too passively, but if our if our other Protoss player actually went like that, then he could have actually won. So, anyway, we're going to move on to another game. It's going to be on Akalon Waste, and I'm not entirely sure if my camera is actually focused. But either way, it doesn't matter now because we're going to move into the game. It's already started. In Akalon Waste, our top left, in top left of Akalon Waste is going to be our red Terror player. He is Shortcut. Shortcut right there. And in the bottom right hand corner with a blue Terran, it's going to be our blue Terran, Disco. This is going to be a TVT. Now we'll see if it decides to go into Mass Mech versus Mass Mech. That would be a slow, boring, but eventually epic fight sequence game. Not entirely sure if that's completely watchable or not. We'll see. As both players are going to drop down their supply depots and make their last SCV here. Bit of a deviance. Our red player is actually going to go for an early refinery, which could mean some Reaper harass. He is getting the refinery before barracks, which I don't think many people do, especially many pro players do, but luckily this is only Gold League, which means doing whatever you want actually works. This is Silver... No, he's actually playing in Silver League, I can't remember. But anyway, this is Gold, Silver League, which means doing whatever you want actually works. And you can do something like this. Hidden barracks. Actually, that's really smart, because what's going to happen is our blue Terran player is not going to see this barracks unless he actually manages to find it, and then he'll actually be searching around all over the place looking for what was apparently a proxy barracks. Now we'll see if he actually sees that barracks. He does actually see it, which means the hidden barracks is no longer hidden, but he has seen an early refinery much earlier than his, which means he should be getting ready for some sort of Reaper. He should be thinking maybe there are Reapers. Or he's like me and he has no idea what's going on! Because oftentimes I see people's gas and I don't know what to think. Instead of Reapers, okay, see, this is why I don't know what to think, because instead of getting a Reaper, this guy, Shortcut's actually going to go for a Marine. He's actually going to drop down the factory too, which means he may be saving up that gas for some huge mech army. We'll see what he decides to make out of that, but... good idea. Our blue Terran player decides to wall off. Not very good against Reapers, but looks like our red Terran player is not getting Reapers anyway, so it's okay. Meanwhile, our blue Terran player is getting Reapers. I've said Reapers about 5-6 times in the past 2 seconds, which is completely out of control. But... something's up. Oh, anyway. Let's see here. We have an early expansion by our blue Terran player, and we have a 1-1-1 build by our red Terran player. So this is actually going to be pretty interesting. We could be seeing a drop coming down from Shortcut. We'll see what he does there. That would actually be pretty good against this kind of early expansion. He could actually try and harass, if not destroy, this expansion. Right now the only thing defending it is a Reaper and a Marine and a bunker, but if the medevacs managed to drop it around here, he could either get all the SCVs that are mining, or he could actually just destroy the command center itself. Widow mines actually being produced by our red Terran player, as well as a medevac. This should be a Reaper drop. This should actually be a Widow mine drop. which would actually be quite hilarious to do. It actually get some really good hits on those from those Widow Mines, so we'll see how well they go. Meanwhile, we are seeing what is it called? Musical chairs being played by our blue Terran player right now, as he is just basically finishing up his upgrades right now. He is going to make Hellion on a reactor. He should be making a second one, really. That's why you put a reactor on the factory. You want to get a second one. The Reaper's going to come out now. Now he doesn't. Now he doesn't see the medevac. I don't think he would have seen that medevac, but he can't jump up here just yet. He has to jump here, and then he can come in from this side. But the medevac's actually going to move across the middle of the map, which is not something you really do with a medevac. You normally come around the side so that they don't get scouted, but with this kind of route, it looks like he's going to try and drop into the main base. Now, if he can manage to drop if he actually drops the Widow Mines by themselves, there's a good chance he could actually just like take out all these SCVs without alerting our blue Terran player to the presence of enemy forces. Especially since Widow Mines don't actually automatically attack until they burrow. Now here comes, well, the first unit that dropped was the Marine, which means these SCVs are actually going to run away now. That's why you want to drop down the Widow Mine first, because the Widow Mines can then burrow, and if there's a high chance that the blue player is not actually paying attention, in which then the Widow Mines could actually do a few shots first before the Marines come and finish everything up. Now this Hellion is actually going to be able to get rid of all the Marines, but unfortunately the Marines did kill 8 workers. Widow Mines obviously doing a bit of damage to those workers as well. Meanwhile, we do see a Banshee coming in. Now, our blue Terran player has only two Marines, 4 Marines to defend against this. I don't think that's enough to kill this Banshee. I mean, this Banshee could actually just like micro around a bit, and even cloak as well. Actually, turns out those Marines were enough to kill off that Banshee, but unfortunately the Banshee is cloaked. He is losing a lot of SCVs to this Banshee. This Banshee's already up to 10 kills. This should not be possible. These Marines these Marines almost ran under the Banshee, and then if he scanned, which he doesn't have enough energy to do so, which is why this Banshee is actually doing so much damage. He needs to run these Marines, he needs to run these SCVs away right now, because, oh, he's actually just gonna leave! Okay, so let's just get this straight. Okay, let's just get this straight. A failed Widow Mine drop because the Marines came down first. You gotta agree, if the Widow Mines came down before the Marines, that would have done even more damage. But anyway, the Widow Mine Marine drop plus a Banshee harass equals rage quit. I've just learned something new, guys. You can force a Gold League player to rage quit with just Banshees. Whoa! Okay, that was messed up. I think though the lack of scans was really the tipping point, but also if our blue Terran player actually just ran his SCVs away for a little bit and wait for the command center to just like get up some energy, this game could have lasted longer. So we're going to move on to another game now. I'm going to go for another 15 minutes. Let's see. We're going to go on to Belshire Vestige. This is actually a pretty long map. At least the ground rush distance is pretty long. So anyway, we'll see how well we'll see what happens in this game as I look around to set up the video. So in the bottom right hand corner of Belshire Vestige, it is going to be our red Protoss player who is Shortcut. And in the top left hand corner it is going to be our blue Zerg player who's going to be Reza. Now if you were paying attention just then, you would have known how long this game was going. But anyway, moving away from that, it's going to be a PVZ. So we'll see what happens here between our players. We do have actually a proxy pylon coming down for our Protoss player, which means he's probably going to go for that 10-10 gate again. That sweet 10-10 proxy zealot gate. Proxy zealot gate, what? What was that? But anyway, the Overlord's going to move out. He has no idea about this this pylon here. Now, 10-10 gate basically means you wait until you have 300 minerals before you put down the 10-10 gate. Plural. Meanwhile, our Zerg player is probably going to try and drop down a pool. He's probably going to go pool first versus Protoss, because that's what you do against Protoss, especially against Protoss who don't decide to forge fast expand. You really gotta. That's why when you're playing Zerg, you really gotta scout out what the Protoss is doing. If the Protoss drops down a gate, then you gotta drop down a pool. If the Protoss drops down 10-10 gate, then you're really gonna drop down a pool. If the Protoss drops down a forge, then you gotta go hatch. Then you basically have to go hatch first. But when you're playing Protoss, it'd be fun to do some mind games. Show the Zerg player the forge, and then when the Zerg's drone just runs away, cancel the forge, and then go 4-gate. Or something stupid like that. Cancel the forge, and then, like, do this. Not necessarily 4-gate, not even just 10-10 gate, but do something like do an early rush, because the Zerg player will have gotten up the hatchery. He will have nothing to defend, and your Zealots can basically just run rampant all over the Zerg player's base, and I think that would actually be quite funny. But anyway, we do have the 2 Zealots coming out now. This Zealot unfortunately coming out a little bit late. But we'll see whether or not these Zealots are not synchronized. Nah, these Zealots are probably not synchronized. We'll see how together they come out. Now, our Zerg player still doesn't know about this 10-10 gate. I'm pretty sure he has no idea about this. And now 4 Zealots are going to come in. He's going to just completely bypass the natural, which is actually a fairly good idea. The Queen hasn't come out yet. Now, we do have 2 spines coming down. This is actually a really good play by our Zerg player, especially since this spine is actually placed so that it blocks the Zealots from getting to this spine, and basically, unfortunately, the spines came in a little bit late. Now, if the drones could actually block the Zealots from hitting the spine, that would be a really, really good play, but unfortunately, they do not, and this spine crawler is actually going to die. Now the Queen's coming out now. If he can actually manage to kite these Zealots, he should actually get the Queens. Oh yeah, there we go. Getting the drones to follow the Queen is exactly what you want to do, because you want the Zealots to not be able to hit the Queen. But at this point in time, the Zealots aren't even going for the Queen. Now the Broodlings are not going to do that much damage. The Queen's actually going to get 1 Zealot kill at least. Now the drones need to actually try and attack, and they are going to actually. Oh, there we go. That's actually some 6 surround. That's actually a pretty good surround by by these drones here. Unfortunately, one of the drones is going to die. Actually, that's a pretty good micro by our Zerg player right there. Now, this Queen's actually going to stay alive, I think. The drones actually, you can see the importance of these drones actually managing to just block the Zealots from killing the Queen. There are a lot of Zealots though, and they are unfortunately attacking the Queen. The AI is not allowing them to kill the drones because the drones are apparently not important enough, quote unquote. But I think there's not enough drones to actually block this, and now the Zealots are going to try and kill off the spawning pool, the second spawning pool anyway, and this Queen's about to die! The Queen does fall down, and I think that's going to be GG from our Zerg player, because he can't even afford to get another Queen, and our blue Zerg player is not happy about that game at all. And fair enough. I mean, he did actually get Zealot rushed, which is not the best way of losing. Not the best way of losing a game at all. I would get pretty angry too if I got Zealot rushed, but I don't really, because nobody ever thinks about Zealot rushing me. At the same time, I don't play ones either, so it doesn't really make any difference for me. But one thing that our Zerg player didn't do was he didn't scout out the two. He didn't scout out those 2 gateways, which was really a problem for our Zerg player, because he did actually manage to get that hatchery to come down, and unfortunately, because of that, he had no defense. Now, we have 10 more minutes, so I'll probably go for one more game. That's right, folks, we're going to go for one more game, and ooh, and then after that, it'll be the end of the stream. So let's see how long this particular game goes for as I get rid of that last one. We're going to go back to Accolon Waste. It's going to be... oh, wow. Ah, that's a shame. So anyway, let's go Control Alt 5 because that's my hotkey. So it is going to be in the bottom right hand corner. We have our red Zerg player who's going to be Shortcut, the guy that we have been watching play troll games for the past hour and a half. Meanwhile, in the top left hand corner with the most unfortunate misspelling ever, we have Shouken. That's right, folks. His name is Shouken! Or Shouken, whatever. Unfortunately, if he put an R there instead of the U, it would have, of course, be Shoryuken! Or something like that. So, unfortunate misspelling, but nevertheless, he is... I'm actually going to call him Shoryuken, because Shoryuken is a very interesting word to say. It's a fun word to say. It's a fun word to shout out. It's like Kamehameha, except Kamehameha has way too many syllables. And really, a Kamehameha is a Shoryuken, and vice versa. So, Fireball, Energy Ball, whatever. Ugh. So Zerg player is actually going to scout out with his drone. Meanwhile, the Protoss player is just going to scout out with his probe. Now, the positioning of this pylon means it's going to be a forward fast expand. I mean, unless he decides to do a one gate and then try and sort of wall off this huge ramp here, which is actually not really advised by most players. Actually, you try not to wall off the whole ramp, because if you try to do that, then the other player has ample opportunity to just do a rush and just go straight through and kill all your workers. Now this drone is actually just going to chill out here for a bit before our Zerg player actually loses his collective crap. But he is going to try and deny the Nexus, which is actually a really good idea, seeing that our Protoss player is most likely going to be looking to expand off the Forge, which is what a Forge fast expand really is. Okay. Meanwhile, our Zerg player is actually going to drop the hatchery down again. He's going to drop the hatchery down again in the expansion of our Protoss player. Now, does our Protoss player know about this? Yes, he does. And the cannon, in fact, is actually going to be able to hit the hatchery. Now, can the hatchery actually build? The hatchery will pop, I think. The hatchery will explode and have all the creep just fly all over the place, I think. But he should actually just cancel this in the last minute. This will actually delay the Nexus long enough for, say, our Zerg player to throw down his own hatchery. Now, is the probe going to get the cock block? Yes, he will. He is going to get the cock block, and oh, there we go. Now here comes the pylon. So this is exactly how you block a hatchery here, as our Zerg player has actually blocked the Nexus for a ample amount of time. So even though that has happened, our Protoss player is still out in front, our Zerg player is still behind. He is actually going to lose this hatchery too, so he's going to be quite behind, unfortunately. Now the pylon has finished, which means our Zerg player is just going to be even more behind, as our Protoss player is going to drop down to third. Now let's see if he decides to rage quit like the other Protoss player did against this hatchery in opponent's natural sort of build. I think though, if he gets these... oh, here's the thing though. Here's the thing. This cannon, not entirely... okay, this cannon can actually hit Zerglings trying to run through here. But unfortunately, now does our Protoss player knows about this? Our Protoss player knows that there are things being built here. Now there are 6 Zerglings. I think he could actually just run in and try and kill all the workers. That would be a huge play by our Zerg player here. Meanwhile, he's too busy focusing down on that pylon. Now these 4 Zerglings, along with these Zerglings, I don't think they'll be able to do much. Especially if this Zealot decides to move over here or over here. Oh, we do have some Banelings being morphed in now. They're not going to do that much damage versus the cannon. especially since there's two pylons actually blocking the cannon from those banelings, which is actually a really, really good idea. But the speed, Zergling speed research has already been finished. You should actually have gotten a Zergling to kill off this pylon instead of leaving it to this poor drone who's got his boxing gloves on. It's just like, yeah, yeah, like that. I did an impression just then, off camera, because I've turned off camera. But regardless, we're going to see some banelings being morphed in right now. Actually, he actually turned these 6 Zerglings into banelings. I'm not entirely sure if that was such a good idea. I think those 6 Zerglings would have done ample amount of damage to these workers to sort of bring them back together. But he is going to try and... oh, I see what he did there. He got those 6 banelings to try and kill off the cannon. Meanwhile, these Zerglings are just going to come in. It's going to be GG from our Protoss player because there's just so many Zerglings. These baneling hits does actually manage to get rid of all the probes. Oh my god, and that is it. GG from our Protoss player. That was a really good hit by our Zerg player, and our Protoss player still doesn't know how to surrender. Can't one base Protoss anymore. Woo! Where the hell did those banelings come from? That's a really, really good question. You unfortunately did not scout out those banelings, so I think our Zerg... Actually, you know what? It'll be really funny if our Protoss player decides to rebuild, because he has a base, but unfortunately he did lose all his probes, so that was most unfortunate for him. I mean, those baneling hits were basically the death of him. I think it was quite obvious, that those banelings were really the reason why he lost that game. Those if he managed to run away with all those probes and get it to the third quote unquote nexus, then that would have been a really, really good advantage, I guess, and he could have just tried to elongate the game even longer. Unfortunately, there were a lot of Zerglings, so I think this was just a matter of time before he was completely screwed. But anyway, guess what, guys? It is 6:29, as it says on my watch. I will actually focus on it because I can. As you can see right there, it is 6:29. It's almost 6:30, which means I gotta go. So thanks for watching, everyone. This has been quite an exciting cast. If you have some more random, if you have some random games that you would like me to cast, you can send to me via the Dark Magician. It's on Facebook, actually. I have a Facebook page which I barely ever use. It's www.facebook.com/magician88gaming. I'll have the link down below in the YouTube video. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.